Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning, we'll be starting in Leviticus, chapter 1, verse 1, through chapter 3, verse 17. Then the Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the meeting tent. Speak to the Israelites and tell them, when someone among you presents an offering to the Lord, you must present your offering from the domesticated animals, either from the herd or from the flock. If his offering is a burnt offering from the herd, he must present it as a flawless male. He must present it at the entrance of the meeting tent for its acceptance before the Lord. He must lay his hand on the head of the burnt offering, and it will be accepted for him to make atonement on his behalf. Then the one presenting the offering must slaughter the bull before the Lord, and the sons of Aaron, the priests, must present the blood and splash the blood against the sides of the altar, which is at the entrance of the meeting tent. Next, the one presenting the offering must skin the burnt offering and cut it into parts, and the sons of Aaron, the priest, must put fire on the altar and arrange wood on the fire. Then the sons of Aaron, the priests, must arrange the parts with the head and the suet on the wood that is in the fire on the altar. Finally, the one presenting the offering must wash its entrails and its legs in water, and the priest must offer all of it up in smoke on the altar. It is burnt offering, a gift of a soothing aroma to the Lord. If his offering is from the flock, from a burnt offering, from sheep or the goats, he must present a flawless male, and must slaughter it on the north side of the altar before the Lord, and the sons of Aaron, the priests, will splash its blood against the altar's sides. Next, the one presenting the offering must cut it into parts, with its head and its suet, and the priest must arrange them on the wood which is in the fire on the altar. Then the one presenting the offering must wash the entrails and the legs in water, and the priest must present all of it, and offer it up in smoke on the altar. It is a burnt offering, a gift of a soothing aroma to the Lord. If his offering to the Lord is a burnt offering from the birds, he must present his offering from the turtle doves or from the young pigeons. The priest must present it at the altar, pinch off its head, and offer the head up in smoke on the altar, and its blood must be drained out against the side of the altar. Then the priest must remove its entrails by cutting off its tail feathers, and throw them to the east side of the altar into the place of fatty ashes, and tear it open by its wings without dividing it into two parts. Finally, the priest must offer it up in smoke on the altar on the wood which is in the fire. It is burnt offering, a gift of a soothing aroma to the Lord. When a person presents a grain offering to the Lord, his offering must consist of choice wheat flour, and he must pour olive oil on it and put frankincense on it. Then he must bring it to the sons of Aaron, the priests, and the priest must scoop out from there a handful of its choice wheat flour and some of its olive oil in addition to all of its frankincense, and the priest must offer its memorial portion up in smoke on the altar. It is a gift of a soothing aroma to the Lord. The remainder of the grain offering belongs to Aaron and to his sons. It is most holy from the gifts of the Lord. When you present an offering of grain baked in an oven, it must be made of choice wheat flour baked into unleavened loaves, mixed with olive oil, or unleavened wafers smeared with olive oil. If your offering is a grain offering made on the griddle, it must be choice wheat flour mixed with olive oil, unleavened. Crumble it in pieces and pour olive oil on it. It is grain offering. If your offering is a grain offering made in a pan, it must be made of choice wheat flour deep fried in olive oil. You must bring the grain offering that must be made from these to the Lord, present it to the priest, and he will bring it to the altar. Then the priest must take up from the grain offering its memorial portion, and offer it up in smoke on the altar. It is a gift of a soothing aroma to the Lord. The remainder of the grain offering belongs to Aaron and to his sons. It is most holy from the gifts of the Lord. No grain offering which you present to the Lord can be made with yeast, for you must not offer up in smoke any yeast or honey as a gift to the Lord. You can present them to the Lord as an offering of first fruit, but they must not go up to the altar for a soothing aroma. Moreover, you must season every one of your grain offerings with salt. You must not allow the salt of the covenant of your God to be missing from your grain offering. On every one of your grain offerings you must present salt. If you present a grain offering of first ripe grain to the Lord, you must present your grain offering of first ripe grain as soft kernels roasted in fire, crushed bits of fresh grain. And you must put olive oil on it, and set frankincense on it. It is a grain offering. Then the priest must offer its memorial portion up in smoke, some of its crushed bits, some of its olive oil, in addition to all of its frankincense. It is a gift to the Lord. Now if his offering is a peace offering sacrifice, if he presents an offering from the herd, he must present before the Lord a flawless male or female. He must lay his hand on the head of his offering, and slaughter it at the entrance of the meeting tent, and the sons of Aaron, the priests, must splash the blood against the altar's side. Then the one presenting the offering must present a gift to the Lord from the peace offering sacrifice. He must remove the fat that covers the entrails, and all the fat that surrounds the entrails, the 2 kidneys with the fat on their sinews, and the protruding lobe on the liver, which he is to remove along with the kidneys. Then the sons of Aaron must offer it up in smoke on the altar, atop the burnt offering that is on the wood, in the fire, as a gift of a soothing aroma to the Lord. If his offering for a peace offering sacrifice to the Lord is from the flock, he must present a flawless male or female. If he presents a sheep as his offering, he must present it before the Lord. He must lay his hand on the head of his offering and slaughter it before the meeting tent, and the sons of Aaron must splash its blood against the altar's sides. Then he must present a gift to the Lord from the peace offering sacrifice. He must remove all the fatty tail up to the end of the spine, the fat covering the entrails, and all the fat on the entrails, the 2 kidneys with the fat on their sinews, and the protruding lobe on the liver, which he is to remove along with the kidneys. Then the priest must offer it up in smoke on the altar as a food gift to the Lord. If his offering is a goat, he must present it before the Lord, lay his hand on its head, and slaughter it before the meeting tent, and the sons of Aaron must splash its blood against the altar's side. Then he must present from it his offerings as a gift to the Lord, the fat which covers the entrails, and all the fat on the entrails, the 2 kidneys with the fat on their sinews, and the protruding lobe on the liver, which he is to remove along with the kidneys. Then the priest must offer them up in smoke on the altar as a food gift for a soothing aroma. All the fat belongs to the Lord. This is a perpetual statute throughout your generations in all the places where you live. You must never eat any fat or any blood. So you have the Lord putting down the ritual practice for several sacrifices to be offered on the altar: the burnt sacrifice, grain offerings, and peace offerings. I think that's all of them. Oh, interesting. Guzik says that the ritual eating of blood was a common practice of pagan peoples, both ancient and modern. God wanted his people separated from these pagan rituals and to instead recognize that life and blood are strongly connected. You shall eat neither the fat. There was a practical significance to this command. Whatever other benefits there may be in eating less fat and blood, it is true that parasites, such as tapeworms, were often found in the fatty tissue. By obeying this command, the ancient Israelites avoided great exposure to these dangerous parasites. Matthew Poole described another reason why this normally desired portion of the animal was given to God: to exercise them in obedience to God, in self-denial and mortification of their appetites, even in those things which probably many of them would desire. So, to make their desires subject to God. Carrying on, Mark chapter 1, verse 29 through chapter 2, verse 12. Now, as soon as they left the synagogue, they entered Simon and Andrew's house with James and John. Simon's mother-in-law was lying down sick with a fever, so they spoke to Jesus at once about her. He came and raised her up by gently taking her hand. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. When it was evening, after sunset, they brought to him all those who were sick and demon-possessed. the whole town gathered by the door. So he healed many who were sick with various diseases, and drove out many demons, but he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. Then Jesus got up early in the morning, when it was still very dark, departed, and went out to a deserted place, and there he spent time in prayer. Simon and his companions searched for him. When they found him, they said, "Everyone is looking for you." He replied, "Let us go elsewhere, into the surrounding villages, so that I can preach there too, for that is what I came out here to do." So he went into all of Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and casting out demons. Now a leper came to him and fell to his knees, asking for help. "If you are willing, you can make me clean," he said. Moved with compassion, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, "I am willing, be clean." The leprosy left him at once, and he was clean. Immediately Jesus sent the man away with a very strong warning. He told him, "See that you do not say anything to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and bring the offering that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them." But as the man went out, he began to announce it publicly and spread the story widely, so that Jesus was no longer able to enter any town openly, but stayed outside in remote places. Still, they kept coming to him from everywhere. Now, after some days, when he returned to Capernaum, the news spread that he was at home. So many gathered that there was no longer any room, not even by the door, and he preached the word to them. Some people came, bringing to him a paralytic, carried by 4 of them. When they were not able to bring him in because of the crowd, they removed the roof above Jesus. Then, after tearing it out, they lowered the stretcher the paralytic was lying on. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Now, some of the experts in the law were sitting there, turning these things over in their minds. "Why does this man speak this way? He's blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone?" Now immediately, when Jesus realized in his spirit that they were contemplating such thoughts, he said to them, "Why are you thinking such things in your heart? Which is easier to say to the paralytic, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Stand up, take your stretcher, and walk'? But, so that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," he said to the paralytic, "I tell you, stand up, take your stretcher, and go home." And immediately the man stood up, took a stretcher, and went out in front of them all. They were all amazed and glorified God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this." Yeah, this is when Jesus heals this leprous man in chapter 1. He says, "See that you do not say anything to anyone, but go, show yourself to a priest, and bring the offering that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them." I'm not sure if it's in Mark's gospel, but at least one of the gospels has Jesus kind of continually saying, don't say anything about this. But you can see, and that's sometimes confusing. Like, why is Jesus telling them not to spread the news? And I think it's because of this Mark 1:45. But as the man went out, he began to announce it publicly and spread the story widely, so that Jesus was no longer able to enter any town openly, but stayed outside in remote places. And still they kept coming to him from everywhere. So, I'm trying to meter, I guess, the explosive reaction. But yeah, Mark gets right into it and starts with all of the healing and casting out of demons. And then you have this paralytic being healed. But first, what Jesus does is really interesting. He says in Mark 2:5, when Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Now, this is really an interesting statement because, as C.S. Lewis says, this is seemingly an enormous bit of cheek And that is, consider that a friend wronged you, and I and I say to that friend, that wrong that you committed to your friend is forgiven, and you're like, wait, no, I'm the one that that it happened to. So, yeah, it only really makes sense to say your sins are forgiven if you are the person primarily wronged in such a event. And as such, he's claiming to be God, because the only person who can reasonably claim to be the one primarily wronged by all wrongdoing is God. And the Pharisees recognize this and say, why does this man speak this way? He's blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone? So, yeah, but to back up his claim, Jesus demonstrates divine power and actually heals the paralytic man. So, carrying on, Psalm 35, verses 17 through 28. O Lord, how long are you going to just stand there and watch this? Rescue me from their destructive attacks. Guard my life from the young lions. Then I will praise you. I will give you thanks in the great assembly. I will praise you before a large crowd of people. Do not let those who are my enemies for no reason gloat over me. Do not let those who hate me without cause carry out their wicked schemes, for they do not try to make peace with others, but plan ways to deceive those who are unsuspecting. They are ready to devour me. They say, aha, we've got you. But you take notice, Lord. O Lord, do not remain far away from me. Rouse yourself, wake up, and vindicate me. My God and Lord, defend my just cause. Vindicate me by your justice. O Lord my God, do not let them gloat over me. Do not let them say to themselves, aha, we have what we wanted. Do not let them say, we have devoured him. May those who want to harm me be totally embarrassed and ashamed. May those who arrogantly taunt me be covered with shame and humiliation. May those who desire my vindication shout for joy and rejoice. May they continually say, may the Lord be praised, for he wants his servant to be secure. Then I will tell others about your justice and praise you all day long. And finally, Proverbs chapter 9, verses 13 through 18. The woman called Folly is brash. She is naive and does not know anything. She sits at the door of her house on a seat at the highest point of the city, calling out to those who are passing by her in the way, who go straight on their way. Whoever is simple, let him turn and hear, she says to those who lack understanding. Stolen waters are sweet, and food obtained in secret is pleasant. But they do not realize that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of the grave. Yeah. In contrast to wisdom, you also have the woman called Folly, who makes a appealing plan or course of action, presents an appealing course of action to people, but without revealing the consequences of that plan. That the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of the grave. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a great day. Bye.